Hey, how's it going? Just hanging out. If you're watching, got nothing too much planned, but just see if anybody on the forum has any questions or something. So I'm just hanging out with the FM3 and see what happens. So feel free to hang out. Any questions? Let me know. I'm just gonna go through some of these factory presets I haven't tried in a while. Yeah, that's cool. It's gonna take forever to disappear, so have to turn it down. But yeah, I mean, there's so many cool factory presets. I typically only use my one preset that I use for gigs and stuff, but it's nice to just jump up in this sort of upper area and see what is going on around here. That's some cool stuff. Sorry, let me turn off that. But yeah, how's it going, everybody? Yo, it's people from the forum. How's it going? Wow, that is thick. I haven't tried this one in a. Yeah, I mean, there's the enhancer going on, and I should be in stereo if you're listening. It should be in stereo as well, so that's helping. I have my in-ears on. Yeah, but see, this is the thing. I feel like this is a sound everybody wants to hear the guitar. I'm going to turn it up a little bit. When I try new presets, I turn it down. I just don't want it to hit the stream too hard. But I think everybody wants that sensation in their guitar when they hit it and they play in their headphones or at home. But then they go to the gig, and I'm not saying this isn't a good gig preset at all. I'm just saying they go to the gig with this sort of sound for their band. Now, Mark Day made this for whatever situation he was in, and that's the thing about presets. Unless they specifically say, like, this is a preset good for gigging, a lot of times, especially if you're doing like exchange or just random presets around, you kind of don't know what the situation was for that preset. So let's say they play in a band with like a keyboardist, a bassist, a drummer, two keyboardists, maybe 5 singers. You know, the preset they're going to make is probably going to have a smaller sonic space. You know, so the guitar plays the guitar role in that sort of band where it's more like general songs or like pop or something, where the guitar is really there to be a guitar. And so they download that preset and they go, oh, it sounds super thin. It doesn't sound like this big raw thing that I want. And then they go to their band, and even if they're the only guitarist and it's like a trio, guitar, bass, and drums, and it's like heavy music, which seems to be something a lot of people do with the acts and stuff, which is fine. Even then, it's like, you have to give the bass room on that stage. You have to give the kick drum room on that stage with tone and EQ and frequency. When you sound like this at home, that sounds great, but that might not be the sound you need or your band desires. Because if you have all this like low end, especially on that solo, there's like a lot of low end. That's the reason I dial in a gig preset and a different preset for at home. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something a lot of people have trouble understanding at first. I think a lot of people have, let's say, a practice amp, somewhere in the $500 range. If they're just getting started with the guitar, they've been playing for a few years, and they see fractal and they see all helix, whatever, you name it, and they're like, ooh, I can get like all the sounds. I think with multi-effects pedals and modelers, I think that's the first reason people want to get it. They have one amp, maybe a couple pedals, but probably not. They have built-in effects on the amp, but you gotta like turn a dial, and you have either delay or chorus, that sort of thing. And then they see a multi-effects unit, and they're like, ooh, I can have all the sounds and add it to my amp or use it instead and things like that. And that's fine, of course, that's what it's for. But I always say this, imagine if someone gave you $100,000 in a music store and you bought every single pedal and amp. You'd be in the same place. You don't know how to use them yet. Yeah. The RTA is priceless for this. Yeah, it shows you what's going on in regards. Yeah, I don't think the FM has the RTA, does it? It doesn't. Yeah, I wish it did. The X3 definitely does, but if you have any free DAW and there's free RTA programs that you can run the audio through, it really helps show you like where the EQ is going when you're talking about like sculpting for the band and things like that. Because if you have this big bass bump in like 100 and 120 in your guitar, I mean, that's where the bass lives. The kick lives around there. And if you're taking up that sonic space with the guitar, those instruments won't like have an impact in the band as a whole. And then you just start turning everything up and it just gets louder and less clear. There's no clarity. But yeah, I think people start with like a practice amp, get something like this, or again, any modeler, you name it. And it's just like, how do I set this? I want a big sound, but maybe that big sound works at home, but it doesn't work in the band. So, sorry, like I was saying, this first scene had like a lot of low end. I can just hear it. And again, when you try other people's presets, including the factory ones, you don't quite know what the situation was. You don't know what that preset was intended to do. Maybe it was intended to fill up a full space in a song that prominently features the guitar. But if you're to use this scene or something as like your rhythm tone, maybe turn off the delay or something. But if you're to use this as your rhythm tone for your band, maybe it's taking too much sonic space and I would like cut the bass either in the amp, or excuse me, either in the cab block. I often do that. I will find it first, but I'll go to the low cut in the cab block. This just takes care of so much. I'm going to turn off the delay just so we're kind of focusing on like a rhythm tone, but let's just see what this sounds like. And I'm going to turn down a little bit. So to me, that's a lot of low end. If I have a bassist playing along, he should handle that, you know, depending on the band. So let me just, I'm going to turn this way up. I'm going to turn it all the way up and see what it sounds like. Okay, obviously that's too much, but this is how I personally dial things. I think another thing is people look at a setting like this, let's put it back down, and they say, oh, low cut. Okay, I read you're not supposed to go above 90. So they put it to 90. And of course that helps a little bit. It gets rid of all that 50 and 60 woofy area. But then they're like, oh, I wish it cut some more, but I'm not allowed to go above 90. Yes, you are allowed. You can do whatever you want. So again, I'm putting this way up. This is how I do it. Generally speaking, maybe I won't go all the way up, but I'll go up much farther, or down depending on the knob, much farther than I might end up doing, but that's fine. I'm seeing what the control does, especially if you're new to this and you don't know what it is. Don't put rules on yourself right from the gate. Be prepared for your change to not sound good, and you know, you want to put it back. But at the same time, explore the range of these simple dials. Low cut is generally a simple thing. I'm going to adjust my mic EQ real quick. It's a little today. So here it is, way too much, right? This is way too much. Or maybe even use that as an effect. Start on cab block channel A here and start your intro in the song like... and then roll it down, you know, switch to channel B when the band kicks in or something like this. I mean, there's so many creative ways to use these things. I know there's no modifier on this, but just change channels. Anyway, so what I do is I turn it all the way up, see what the control does in general, and then as I play, I roll it down and see, and try to find a place where I want to park that dial. So initially I thought there was too much low end, I'll just put it down. See, and right there, right about 300, depending on the speakers you're listening to, these ears are pretty detailed, and they were only like $50. I don't know which one it is. It's like the cheap one on Amazon. It's the most detail I've ever heard in an in-ear monitor for less than 100. Anyway, right around 300, you could hear like the actual low end come in. So this is where I want to start focusing. Right about there, right under 300, you hear like some actual low end happening. And this is another thing, using a dial like this, the low cut, you can start to learn what frequencies are what. So I know that right now I'm cutting everything below 1,000, right? And this is what it sounds like. But as I dial it back down, I can start learning, well, what does 800 bring in? What does 600 bring in? And using a distorted tone is great because the harmonics are a little exaggerated, so you can hear them clearer, just for a general sense. But I'm going to roll it down now to where I think this might work in maybe a band situation. And again, everything depends on the situation. This is just some example. See, for me, that, I know it sounds weird on the stream and stuff, but to me that sounds still like there was a little bit too much bass for like a band with a good bassist with like a 5-string or something who gets really down low. So I might even cut it as high as 200, which sounds crazy. Well, it looks crazy, right? There's always that thing like, don't edit tones with your eyes, use your ears. And right now I feel like this might sit in better with the band mix, and I'll turn up a little bit. I know I have it down. And this might be where some experience comes in too. Again, so we had it around 200. And I know I have this detune on. I'm going to turn that off. Usually I turn off all effects that don't change the tone, like the gain, the distortion. If it's like a color effect, like pitch or chorus or phaser, I turn those off when I'm dialing tones, of course, but I left it on for now. So earlier, we were at 200 now. Earlier we had this, right? And that sounds great. That sounds amazing here, without a band playing, without music happening. That sounds so cool. And I think some beginners, of course, they don't know because they're just starting, but then they take that super bassy tone to their band and then they turn up, to 100 decibels. And then it's like, I got lost in the mix. It got really woofy. There's no clarity. This is sort of one area that you can focus on, the low end. Once you clear that low end, everything frees up. I feel like the audio is so hard to describe in general, so I'm going to attempt to do it, but like I have pictures or like feelings in my mind when I hear different frequencies. And we've seen those charts where it was like, different areas of the frequency spectrum are like happy, sad, or woofy, barky, things like that. But for me, just in regards to like low end, like the super duper low end, 50 hertz, 60 hertz and below, to me, that's like woof. That's like pillow. I imagine like a feather pillow, like, in the cartoons when a pillow is like, they're fighting and the pillow hits and then like the feathers, I almost said leaves, the feathers sort of fall down. Like to me, that's what like 50 hertz and below is. It's like that cushion, that feather pillow thing that's like just wispy low end. I don't know if that makes sense, but like it's, again, this is hard to describe, but that's what I think. And to me, if there's too much of that, oh, thanks so much for subscribing. That was really loud. I'm going to turn that down. Holy moly. Thanks for subscribing on YouTube. Too much of the feathers, like I envision the band playing and I see the feathers flying everywhere in like that cartoon fashion. If there's too much of that, you can't see the band, there's too many feathers floating around or like confetti or, something like that. So I try to reduce that woofiness. And again, this sounds great right now. It's a full spectrum. Nobody else is playing. I have the entire range of 20 to 20 to me. Right? And it sounds good right now, but put that in a band and you won't hear the bassist, won't hear the kick. And then, so what I said is about 200 felt good for me. Now this is going to sound completely different. But what I'm not hearing, and I don't know if you can hear it, it depends on your speakers and how this stream is going. I don't hear that sort of weightiness of the feathers, that feather plume going everywhere. It's like completely gone. And that is the area for the bass and the kick, generally speaking. So now I can play, I'd probably add a little more treble to this, just from what I'm hearing now. I'm not playing music. You can't really play music on these streams, of course, because they'll just cut your stream and take down your channel. But I'm going to try and go back and forth. I'm going to compare them. I'm not going to do channels. I'm just going to change the knob. But this has, currently, this does not have that woofy low end. Right? I mean, you should be able to hear a difference. From here, whether you like that difference or not is totally up to you. But do keep in mind your band context, your situation. What is happening? Do you have a bassist with a 5-string low B? I'm playing a 7-string with a low B. And for my 7-string to get in his way of his like higher strings even, that's a problem. So you want to carve out that sound. Let's try the same thing with the high cut. It sounds okay to me. I'd probably add some treble, like I said. I think the pitch block detune is sort of taking some of it away, but let's just see what the high cut does. So again, if I don't know what something does, generally speaking, I'll explore the range of the dial and just see what it does. And sometimes you might not hear a difference, and that's okay. Leave the dial alone. One day I didn't hear a difference on some knob. The very next day, I heard a difference with the same exact preset and things. So sometimes our minds aren't ready to understand the difference either, or sometimes our ears aren't ready, or honestly aren't working that day. It happens. Our ears change with the weather and how we're feeling, if we slept enough and things like that. So let's explore the high cut just in this preset. And again, I just chose this preset randomly. I'm just going through them. This has nothing to do with Mark Day or anything specific. This is just the preset that came up. And it's a nice example because it's such a wide range. So let's try that high cut. Let's just see what happens. We're going to leave the low cut at 200-ish. So it was around 11K before, and now we're at 4K, 4,000, right? Honestly, this tone is usable for certain things. Let's say we have a horn section in the band, or a strings on piano or synthesizer or something. That high end from vocals, horns, things like that, you also don't want to fight that. So as limited as this sounds, and maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit just so you can hear it, especially on stream, compression and all of that, this is actually a usable tone. And in one of my bands a while ago, when I was using the Ultra, I think, that long ago, a lot of my distortion tones sounded like this. And again, it doesn't sound full range. It's not like the sparkliest highs of the distortion and the booming lows, but other elements in the band were taking care of those frequencies. So I wanted to stay away from it. And like I said, sometimes in bands, you want the guitar to just be a guitar. I think we have a lot of amazing players out there where their band situation, let's take Animals as Leaders. I've been listening to them nonstop, literally, for the past like 3 months now. I saw them at NAMM live. I liked them before, but I wasn't too familiar. I got to see them live with a big stage show, and oh my goodness. But let's take them as an example. They have tracks, they have additional bass and additional instruments on the tracks behind them, but primarily speaking, what's featured are 2 guitars, with a lower string. So each guitar can run the range from low E, double low E, all the way up to the high E in the 24th fret, or whatever they have. I'm sure it's 24. They have the range in their music. They've designed the music in such a way that the guitar should sound full. If you're familiar with Animals as Leaders, bass on the tracks take care of the ultra low end when they're kind of both up high or something like that. But their situation warrants having a guitar fill the entire range of frequencies. Now, when they do their solos, I can tell on their tones, some of their solo tones are limited similar to this. It's not this full range. So when they're playing rhythm, it's like the full thing, so you can get all the slaps and pops from their techniques, which I definitely cannot do. Full low end, full high end for the rhythm. But when they go to lead, I can tell it's limited. The EQ gives the solo its own space in the music, and that's something to keep in mind. So I don't know where I'm going with this. If you're still watching, thank you. But this is one of the first things I do if I'm either downloading a preset and trying it, or I'm creating my own preset for a specific context. I go into the cab block, and I tend to do it here just because it's right here. Low cut, high cut. This can solve so many of the I can't hear myself problems. I get lost in the mix. My bassist is mad at me problems. Right here, low cut, high cut. Everyone says I sound shrill, but I think I sound amazing because my speaker's pointing toward their ears and it's pointing toward my ankles. Those are very common things, and it really happens, and we're blind to it sometimes, coming especially from traditional gear where the speakers were pointed right at the audience, and that poor person at the front of the stage or table, if you're playing at a restaurant, gets their ears blasted from a ton of high end. and you don't hear it because 5-6 feet above it as you stand. So this is really important. The fractal, of course, the FM3 and the Axe effects, they model. If you're using full modeling, an IR is a microphone on a cabinet at a specific position, and that's what the mic hears. And a lot of people get the Axe gear or any modeler and they say, wow, it's much brighter than I'm used to. I said, well, it's modeling, so to speak, your ear right next to the cabinet. Have you done that? And they're like, no, of course not. I said, try it. I mean, turn down, don't kill yourself, but be quiet, turn down and put your ear closer and closer to the cabinet, and you might be surprised at how much high end is actually going on in that cone in the speaker. And they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And that's what's being modeled. Now, when you mic a real amp at a gig, a lot of times the sound guy will just dial down the high end and not even tell you. Some sound guys don't do anything, of course, but some will just dial it down so it sounds good in the mix, and they won't tell you. So you're on your stage hearing your cab, 6 feet, your ear's 6 feet or so above the speaker, and you have no idea all this high end's coming out, while the sound guy has already dialed it in, and you're like, oh, see, it's perfect. Then you get to modeling, you're like, oh god, there's so much high end. Well, it depends on the situation. Like I said, play around with the low cut and the high cut. To me, that sort of hiss type EQ that comes in when I'm turning this up, to me that's irritating, and that doesn't work in my gigs. However, if you're in a rock metal band or something where the drums are constantly on like open hi-hats, crash cymbals, unfortunately or fortunately, you'll need those frequencies, that kind of shh sound, to cut through to the mix to give your strings clarity as you play. So one man's like hiss is bad and another man's is like all you need. So it really depends on the situation, what you're playing, who you're playing with, what your band sounds like. Maybe you have a bassist. I just recently played drums in a band with an amazing group, and the bassist played somewhat like lead style, if that makes any sense. He played the bass parts, but he was constantly up here exploring chords and things. It worked. He knew where to put it, but because of that, sometimes there was no low end being held down, just sporadically here and there. But the band had to, know that. So when he went up, someone else went down as low as they could on their guitar, and maybe I filled in with a little bit of toms, floor toms or something, depending on the song, of course. If it felt like all of a sudden, the band was here, and then all of a sudden there was no low end, and it's like, just high end stuff. So there has to be some context on the low end. Very specific, I know, but I feel it's hard to know this, and it's easy to overlook as a beginner modeler user or as a beginner guitarist in general. These sort of concepts. So yeah, for me, this tone, as limited as it sounds, works better for me in my context. So I would leave it here. But let me put it back, and I'll show you another way that I use, or another way that I address these sorts of issues. So here's the full tone again. It's going to be much more low end. I'm going to turn down a little bit. Let me turn off that pitch detune, just see what it sounds like. Yeah, I'm going to leave that off for now. Definitely more recto now. Right? So aside from the cab block, I would start there for sure. But let's say I didn't. I would go to the amp block, and this might be sacrilege for some people. But really the only thing I do in the amp block, aside from your basics, bass, mid, treble, I always start there, of course, but this sounds pretty good. To tune it from there, I typically only go to the output EQ additionally. This is the only place that I personally go to fix sort of stuff. I know some people go to the speaker tab and adjust this resonance thing. I don't really understand it myself, and I'm not going to pretend to. I mean, I could turn the dials and learn it, but I don't like adding, personally, I don't like adding too many layers. I don't think you should have to go to an amp and change all the speaker drives and change all the resonances and change all the power amp things and change all, it shouldn't be that hard. If you're doing that, generally speaking, you have the wrong amp to begin with. This sounds too much like a Recto. I want it to sound like a Marshall. Well, get off the Recto, go to a Marshall and start tweaking there. You might have more instant results. Anyway, possible. I start with the basics, bass, mid, treble, maybe some of this other stuff, presence, depth, that's easy stuff. Every amp, generally speaking, has something like that. From there, the only place I go to is output EQ. And what I personally do, again, this is my thing, I change it to 5-band passive. Okay, and let me reset this. Just so we have a starting point. I like 5-band passive because, one, it doesn't have numbers here. Sometimes numbers are great, but in terms of creating tone, I feel like a lot of times you look at something that says 60 hertz, you say, I gotta turn that down. And you look at 400 hertz, you say, I gotta turn that down because I hate 400. And a lot of times that has you making a tone before you even hear it. And then you're like, wow, there's no mids, I'm getting lost in the mix and things like that. Well, it's because you change things without like listening to it. So here's what I do. I change it to 5-band passive, I start flat, and let's hear what it sounds like again. I think I'm at a good level. Yeah, I feel like I have like that Meshuggah low end right now, and I don't want that. So in addition to the cab block, I would do that first, but we reset it for now. I'll play around with these. So low, low mid, mid, high mid, and high. Perfect. It's a range of frequencies. So let's just start with low. There's too much low, so let's start with the lowest one and see what happens. Now, before we do this, always cut. Generally speaking, when you're doing EQ, it's best to cut first. If you increase or boost EQ, that is a level boost. You're only boosting a small portion of the frequencies, but you are turning it up. So that can lead to clipping, overdriving your speakers, things like that. So it's better to cut first, see kind of what range you're playing with, and then if you need to, you can boost a little bit, but just a heads up there. So that low is probably very, very low end stuff. I didn't hear too much change. I'm going to put it up and down again right now, but I didn't personally hear too much of a change. Here we go. Okay, at the end when I put it up about 2 dB, I could definitely feel that feather pillow flying in the air thing I described earlier, where that woof comes in. It sort of envelops you and surrounds you. Another way I see low end is sort of like water. Like if you're standing in a pool like with water sort of waist high, that's like a good amount. But if there's too much bass, the water goes over you, like, shoulder level or something, that's too much. There's too much like low end surrounding you and like clouding up everything. So sometimes I like the bass to be like ankle level as far as water in a pool goes. That's kind of how I visualize it. Not water specifically, but some sort of, substance. Gas or like that's anything that you can visualize to help you think what sound looks like. But that didn't do much. I'm going to leave it cut. Let's jump to low mid and see what that does. I'm on a low B string right now, so there's a little extra low end as well. Okay, so cutting that told me a few things. One, there was a more significant change. Let's listen to that change again. Now, honestly, this is actually... There's an airplane flying over my house. This is also actually a usable tone for an effect, I would say. This is sort of like an effect type tone where there's no effects, but it's like super bassy. That low mid being pulled out kind of doesn't have it latch on to the sound, if you know what I mean. It's sort of free. It's sort of in the background. It's sort of everywhere, right? But what that told me is because I have the low end cut and the low mids, I still hear like a ton of low end happening. So to me, that shows that the cab is doing a lot of that low end creation, and we would want to go to the cab block and fix it there. But again, we're just kind of showing different methods here. So there's still a lot of low end, even though I've cut only by 12 dB, which is a lot, but that's not like zero, right? It's not turning it off. That's not enough, but here we go. Again, depending on what you're listening to, there's like this big woof in the background of all of that, like, and that's coming from the cab, it's coming from the IR. It's not a bad thing, it's just there. So if you want that, cool. That's what a real cab does. That's what it sounds like. But you can get rid of it in the cab block with that low cut like I showed. I'm going to reset these, and then let's explore the other ranges. I just don't want to cut everything at the same time. So here we're going to explore the mid, so turn down a little bit again. Now, to some, that is the perfect tone. No mids. Very classic error, I guess you could say. It sounds good in the headphones. It sounds good at home. It sounds good in the car stereo when you scoop the mids out. But no mids generally means no clarity, and you totally get lost as soon as the rest of the band kicks in, you know? Again, many will call that a great tone, maybe a little more high end, but in general, I think you get the idea. They're like, yeah, that sounds great. I don't want any harshness, but I want like gain, and I want distortion, and I want all that. I'm going to put it up now. I'm going to boost a little bit. So I'm going to raise it up slowly as I play, and listen to how the guitar like reappears almost. You know, imagine a bassist playing a low B below your 7-string. Where's the mid-range? Where's the clarity? You know, it's not there. So anyway, here's low B chugging again. Here we go. Can you hear that like shwoop shwoop? Wow, we're having a lot of great words today. That kind of pick sound on the strings, a shh, you know, that sort of thing now, because I've boosted the mids. Now, if you're watching and you're new to this, I'm not saying always boost the mids to get pick sound. With what's going on in this preset right now, it just happens to be there because of the way the other frequencies are. I still think there's way too much bass here, but I'm kind of leaving it here so we can explore. But listen to the pick sound when I have it up. I'm going to pull it down. You won't hear the pick sound anymore. Now, I'm not saying that's a perfect tone. We're just messing with a few EQ sliders at a time. But you can hear the quality of what appears when you have more mid-range versus like none, of course, or minus 12 dB. So let's reduce that. Let's explore the high and high mid and the high. Now, generally speaking, I don't like these frequencies, so I'm not going to turn it up too much, especially on stream over computer speakers. It can be quite harsh. I tend to dial these out a lot in my own presets. A lot of times I'm playing in sort of acoustic situations with no drums, rarely a bass player, so I don't want this high end getting in the room and like causing trouble. So a lot of times I'll take this out, but let's just explore it. I'm going to cut high mid first. We'll put it up, see what it does. So this is a situation where I might actually leave it boosted a little bit. I would still take out some low end. There's still way too much low end, of course, I feel. But if I want that much low end, sometimes you do have to just add some high end on top of it just to balance things out. So now I feel it's like slightly more balanced, even with just this one EQ slider up 4 dB. I'm now getting the clarity of the strings and sort of it would sit in the mix a little better. Okay, I'm sort of remembering what I liked, and then I'll try to do that just with these EQ sliders. Let's explore the high end, see what this sounds like. You might be able to hear that's the like very high end, the very sort of presence areas. It doesn't affect the tone too much, but it's there. And at higher volumes, that can be excruciating. So like I said, I tend to watch this a lot. I tend to not turn this up. I'm pretty much always cutting this for my gigs especially, but even in like a rock context, I'd be careful of that high band. Just make sure it's not, you know, shooting anybody through the skull. So here's what I might do for this tone. I kind of like this here. I like that up a little bit. There's way too much low end, I feel, and this didn't do too much. So let's just see what this does. I don't know how to play that other part. Anyway, now it's more mid-rangey for sure and less bassy. There's still a lot of woof that I would get rid of in the cab block, but, and I'm not saying this is a perfect tone or anything by far, but this could potentially be a better tone because there's less low end getting in the way of the bass. There's more mid-range focus, solely because I boosted it just because there wasn't any, depending on the context. This is how I might adjust a preset for my situation. And again, I'm not saying this preset is bad or anything at all. I'm just saying I'm sculpting it to my situation. And I might do something like this. These are a little extreme. Again, on stream, generally I go a little bit farther just so it's very easy to hear. But this tone to me has more clarity and can be used in a band context a little better because you're not getting in the way of the bass and drums. And I'm cutting some of the high end to get away from the vocals and cymbals and things like that. And if that's too much low end gone, you can add it back, of course. Do it with the band so you can see what is actually happening, but maybe I'll add a little bit back. So earlier I showed the cab block using the low cut and the high cut just to sort of frame the tone, the range of the tone. And I would still definitely cut some low end here. But we reset it. Then I wanted to show how I use the 5-band passive EQ for any tone, for cleans, for distortion. I just think distortion's easier to hear the frequencies, so I stuck with that. Use this to sculpt the tone even further. Now, again, don't copy these settings and put it in every amp you have. That's not what happened here. I listened to what it sounds like. I thought about what I want to hear in my band situation, and then I adjusted things. Now, this may work horribly at the gig. It might not work, but it might work better. It depends on your experience, kind of what you know, what you want it to sound like. And to me, this is a little closer, maybe too much mids for me specifically. But yeah, I would definitely limit the tone more. Take out a bunch of low end so the bass has room. Take out some high end. As much as we like cutting high end for a guitar, you want your singer to be heard as well. And you don't want people to just hear all night. I don't know how many bands I've seen using whatever gear. It doesn't matter. Usually traditional amps. It doesn't matter though. But they just have the treble all the way up, and they're like, my guitar doesn't react if I don't do that. And I understand that at certain volumes you want the guitar to interact with, feedback and things like that. But oh man, as an audience member, I mean, I wear earplugs anyway at most gigs and things I go watch even, but it's just like, wow, you're really like hammering that 2K or that 4K or whatever, and it's just killing my ears. So things to be aware of in general. And what's cool is with a traditional amp, the only way to do this is to mic up the cab somewhere else in like a room, an isolation box or something, and then use usually a mixer or some outboard console with EQ and shape it that way. A bunch of people put like graphic EQs in the effects loop of their amp, and this is exactly what's going on here. This happens to be at the output of the amp block, which I prefer generally, but that's like how you had to do it. You had to run a different EQ through a effects loop or mic it and do it on a mixer to fine tune the amps. Because a lot of amps actually, even though they have like bass, mid, and treble, and they have a range of like -10, +10, or 12 or whatever it is, a lot of amps themselves, they don't sound good in many settings. A lot of amps, there's like a few settings that work for that general sound. And from there, what a lot of people don't understand or realize because they're not in the industry or they haven't been doing it for a while is that they take that original amp sound and put a mic on it, and they just set the knobs to where that amp lives, right? Where that amp tends to sound good at whatever level it tends to sound good. From there, that's not what you hear on the record most often. From there, that sort of basic singular sound that comes from whatever amp it is, that gets tweaked crazy with compression and multi-band EQ, multiple layers of guitars, of course. We all know about double tracking and things like that, but what you hear on the record, if you're trying to match record tones with your guitar, with whatever gear you're using, it's important to know that just because you bought the same amp that the guy uses, that's not what you're hearing, generally speaking. A lot of times there's mix processing and multiband and this and that. So there's a lot to know, but it's not hard either. Just accept sort of like that there are multiple ways to accomplish the same thing, and just turning on the amp to these dials isn't necessarily going to give you the specific sound you think you're going to get. Using tips like this, adjusting the output EQ and using the low and high cut in the cab lock can get you very, very far. Very, very far for much better tones at the very beginning, because it depends what speakers you're physically using, if you're using headphones, what you're listening to, what your band does, like I said earlier. There's a lot that goes into it, but it's very simple. Start by adjusting the low cut. I think I would still low cut this a little bit. In addition to that EQ that I cut out. Like, to me, that's sounding much better already. So start there. EQ, cab block, low and high cut. Very simple stuff. It's not complicated. You don't need to go to speaker. You don't need to go to power supply. You don't need to go to power amp for these basic sort of tweaks. Just go to cab block, turn it up and down, the low cut. Go to the EQ and the amp. Add another EQ if you want it separate. It doesn't matter. But start with those basics and you can go a long way. I'm going to get off this preset, see what else is going on. Happy Place, don't know what this is. Yeah, if you're still watching, I know people have come and gone, which is the way of live streaming. But if you have any questions on the FM3, I'm just hanging out and doing a 50-minute rant on EQing a preset. Not the biggest fan of pitch things. Tends to get out of diatonic really quick. I was playing with this one earlier. I really, really like this one. Actually, what I wanted to do is give a little bit more grit to this. This is the band commander. Okay. Let's see what treble does. Because sometimes treble adds gain on an amp. Still want a little more drive. I'm going to change the trim so there's just more input to the amp and get a little distortion going. Almost sounds like a Derek Sherinian preset from his keyboards on a Dream Theater album. Let's see. Phase delays. What are these? I'll just try them. So yeah, I'm just hanging out. If you have any questions on the FM3 or like fractal stuff in general, let me know in chat. Just sort of hanging out. That's cool. Long something. What is it? Sort of looking for the more effecty ones like this one, of course. That's freaky. I can play so fast. Watch. Watch how fast I'm playing. Uh, I like that one. It makes me sound so cool. I'm literally playing. Gonna have to remember that one and work it into a song. Make people think I'm shred. That's great. Try her. All right, so if you want to impress people, go to preset 370 and play slowly, and it will sound amazing. And as basic as that is, that sounds so good to me. What is it? Tube drive into, so you're overdriving a vibrato verb. Is there any compression in this amp block? It's super compressed. I love that feeling. That's what like a loud amp on stage feels like. No, it's not even on. So this drive block, let's see, levels not too far up. Yeah, like there's so much juicy compression happening here, and it's not even dialed in. There's no comp block or anything. I'm on my split coils sound on this guitar. I should know how to play this song. Sort of a gin blossomy, not really, but kind of. That really compressed, like, just breaking up. So I'm going to turn the gain down a little bit. There's a little too much gain, but let's see what that does. Yeah, sorry, no, I'm just jamming there, but wow, I really like that. I'm gonna have to remember this one. This preset sounds good. Might put a little high end in there, but generally speaking, and that's what I look for. If you're just starting on the FM3 and you're like, how do I do this? I would go through all the presets. I know it's gonna take time, but everything in music takes time, of course. Just go one by one like I'm doing. I happen to be starting at the top. But go one by one and just see if anything grabs your attention. Click a preset, play around, try your different pickup positions, different guitars if you have it, but see if anything just grabs you like that. I didn't plan. I was looking for like effect type things and go, oh, that's cool. But that was a tone thing on that last preset where I was like, huh, I've been looking for something like this. So just jot it down on a notepad, what the number was, what the name was. And then later on, you can move all your presets around to put the ones you liked and, closer together. And then you can start building sort of set lists or like workflows to get to the other presets. Should this one go first? Which one's my main one? But just go through it like I'm doing now and see if anything grabs your attention and write that down. And then later you'll go back and like, no, I didn't. Or you'll find two similar ones and be like, this one is a better choice. But that's how you can go through the FM3, all the presets, and have good starting points. There are amazing presets in here. But if you don't try them, you'll never know they're there. It's hard to communicate to someone, oh, you got to try this preset and this preset only. Don't try the other. Like, you can't say that. You have to try it. That's sort of how it is. Let's see what this is. That's cool. Oh, I don't play this song. No, I don't play that song. I think it's in A minor, right? I don't know. E minor. Echo D. Oh, I actually had a problem with this one when we were building these. Let me see. Okay, I'm going to turn down because this one kind of got away from me. Okay, that's cool. Wow, that's really cool. How would I turn that up? Let's see, what's the best way? Maybe turn the rotary up if I want more of that organ sound. So what's cool is I can put in my piezo guitar, the second input here, and get 3 tones. I have an electric guitar, an organ sort of thing, and an acoustic. That's interesting. What else is in here? High bars. That's really darn cool. might add like a volume pedal here. Let's try that. Let's put a volume pedal. Are there any controllers right now? External one is drive. Oh, sample rate. Oh, really? What does this do? See, always check your controllers list. See if there's anything cool going on. Sample rate. It is not doing anything. External one. What do I have set up here? Thought I was using external one. Yeah, FC1 pedal 1. Huh. That's weird. Did I unplug it? I might have unplugged it. Nope, still in there. Huh. Oh, channel B. You gotta read all the things. Read. So when does channel B happen? Oh, see, they were playing a joke on us. It wasn't even there. Change it to channel B. That is super cool. Well, anyway, I'm going to get out of this one. I want to put a volume pedal here. So we're adding a volume block, and we're going to adjust this to channel A, external 1, just to stay away from channel B on that other thing. So we should just get organ. Yeah, it's very compressed. That is doing a lot of work. Oh, wow, look at that. Infinite ratio. It's basically a block. Wow, because the compressor's so crazy. You know, it's a limiting compressor. The sustain is like forever. Let's just see what it does. Wow, that's crazy. End your song with that. Go to this preset, end your song, and hit the last note, and then everybody will be like, yay, and you're just still not done. You're holding the note for like so long. I don't know, why is this making noise now? Been hitting this switch too hard. I think I'm gotta fix it. Anyway, that's a cool one. I like adding the volume pedal so you just hear the organ. It definitely sounds better, of course, with the guitar in. The organ itself is, you know, whatever, but it's nice to dial it back a little bit. That's so cool. That is genius right there. I don't even know how you figure that out. There we go. There's some bass. Let's see. There is one that I, of course, can't remember. Oh, was it one of these? Thank you for the like on Facebook. Much appreciated. Just playing around here. If you have any questions on the FM3, let me know. I'm going to hang out for a little bit more, but now I'm just going through presets and trying to make funny sounds. I have a volume pedal on the ground, or an expression that I'm doing that filter with, so kind of cool. That's great. I think this is the one a long time ago I adjusted for myself. I could be wrong. Yeah, that definitely has some build up there. Let's see. Ooh, that is like, wow. Can't move away from that one. Don't even know what to play. Oh, 7 string, I can't put my thumb. But I have a low B now. 7 string is hard. What is this? A lot of the 80s sound where you're like, I want a classic 80s chorus sound, a lot of that sound is dependent on a great compressor as well. The compressor, I feel, is way more responsible for the 80s sound than just chorus or something like that. I mean, that is major. Look how hard it's working. That gain control is just... That's super cool. Okay, just gonna do a few more presets. Yeah, if no one has any questions, just hanging out. If anybody did, If anybody did have questions, and if not, that's okay. And we can all go back to doing what we were doing. I did not expect that to happen. That's neat. Nope. Man, there was... I should have written it down, of course. There's something I was playing and it sounded super cool. I don't remember what it was. Because I didn't write it down. Oh wow, it has chorus before and after? That's a lot of chorus. That's so cool. What is this changing? The amp type. Sounds so good. What was the thing that I was doing that I was like, this is the one, don't forget, and then I forgot. Deluxe dot at eighth, what is that? Okay. Oh, wow. That's a lot of things. Okay. All right. I don't remember. It was definitely something cool, and I wish I remembered. It was somewhere around here. It was 100 something. See, that's why I think there's just way too many presets. Was it dream sequence? I don't know. Let's see what that does. Nope. Nope. It was around there though. That's crazy. Oh yeah, it was over here because I just played the Limelight. Anyway. Oh, was it this? Was it Galaxy? No. Oh, actually, it was around here. I don't know if it was this. Any idea if Fractal Audio will build a new FM3 effects only like FX8? I don't know that, but if I was guessing, I don't think they will, but I have no idea. The FM3 can do that. It doesn't have relays like the FX8 does, but I just don't know. To me, it makes sense to have one product that you can support easily and do all these things that it does. It can do everything the FX8 can do except for relays, having relays specifically on here. And I think that that's a lot of what it can do. I'm not sure, even if you bought the FM3 and you don't use the amp modeling, I wouldn't say you're like wasting that money on amp modeling you're not going to use. It can always come in handy as a backup. You can always use it at home if you don't want to turn on the amp very loud. Now that the headphone version is shipping to various places, get that one. You can use headphones with it with amp modeling. So the answer is I don't know. I don't think anybody knows right now. If they do, that's great. If they don't, I think the FM3 can handle that. And MIDI, there are ways to use MIDI to control older amps with relay. You'll need other gear, of course, but that's sort of how it goes with tons and tons of different products available. You can't possibly be compatible with every single one. So yeah, the answer to the question, I don't know, but it'd be cool if they did. And if they don't, I think the FM3 goes a long, long way. Well, looky here at this thing going crazy that whole time. Don't know what that is. A bug. Cool. Hang out for a few more minutes. Any other questions, let me know. Tried to get the attention of some people who were asking questions on the forum, but no one showed up, so that's okay. Stacked. Seriously trying to find it. Was it? All right. Can't remember. Oh well. Cool. Okay, I'm going to call it. Thank you so much for watching. If you did earlier during my long rant about EQing things, that's sort of how it goes on here as a Hangout. If no one has questions, I have nothing to talk about. So check out the forum, see the next time I'm going to do something like this. If you have any questions, let me know. You can DM me. I'm sort of on a break from the forum, but if you put questions there, I can answer it at a later time or something like that. But thanks so much for joining. I'm going to end stream here, and we'll see you next time. Stay safe out there. Have fun. Play guitar.